friends, it's Sister Marla Clerks. A few weekends ago, I went to one of the area parishes, and the priest's homily focused on us being champions for Jesus Christ and gave various examples of how different age groups might do that. When it came time for the offertory, their tradition is to invite little kids to come forward and to put their gifts in a basket in front of the altar. And as he introduced that, he said, "We're teaching our children to be champions of generosity, champions for the Lord in sharing the gifts that they have." It's always a fun time to watch these little ones come up and skipping and running, excited to put their dollar in the basket. And on this particular weekend, there was a little girl who looked to be about 2.5 or 3, with the little pigtails on the sides of her head. And she came up, put her dollar in there, and then she's skipping back down the side aisle. And she stopped at every row and said, "I did it! I did it!" Fortunately, I was sitting on the edge, so I could see her come forward and just look me in the eye and say, "I did it." And I could say, "Well, good for you." That reminded me of the readings chosen for this third Sunday of Advent. We know that the first reading and the gospel are chosen to complement one another. And in that first reading, we hear the message to shout for joy, sing joyfully, be glad and exult, because God is in your midst. And that is something very definitely to be thrilled about and to say it to others as well with that sense of joy. Then the invitation moves into the gospel. Knowing that God is in our midst, what should we do about that? And we see John baptizing people who are coming up to him, and in their enthusiasm of having been baptized, they say, "Well, now what should we do?" And so to the general public, he says, share what you have. If you have 2 of anything, if you have something that you no longer need, give it to someone else. Choose generosity. The tax collectors then ask him, what should we do? And he says, don't collect anything more than what you need or what you're supposed to collect. Choose compassion. Choose compassion over your own greed, your own desire to have more. The soldiers then also ask, what are we supposed to do? And he says, don't falsely accuse people. Don't overextend your power or misuse your power, but instead choose honesty. In his answers, he's inviting people to stretch themselves, to move beyond what they might normally have been as a way of response. To say, okay, God is in your midst, so you need to be generous. You need to be compassionate. You need to be honest. And their response is interesting. It's not like the rich man who was told by Jesus to sell everything you have and give to the poor, and he went away saddened. They hung around, and they said to one another, we wonder if this is the Christ we've heard about, if this is the one who is coming. And John hears that and says, no, I'm not the one. I'm not even fit to untie his sandal. I'm baptizing you with water, but the one who is coming will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire, will create within you that passion to do what is right, to recognize God in your midst. And it says, and then he will gather the wheat, those who have done what the Lord has required of us. And those he will gather into his barn or into his reign in heaven. But those who ignore it or deny it are the chaff, who will be burned and not included. So it's a pretty strong message. This Advent season, as we look forward to Christmas, we focus on God in our midst. God in our midst in, of course, the gift of Jesus. God in our midst in the gift of friends and family, in the gifts of creation. But we're also asked to look at God in the midst of our hearts. How are we called to be those people of greater justice towards others? How are we to allow that fire that was part of our own baptism to create a passion within us to do what is right, to do what God asks of us? And we may need to take it to prayer and say, what is it you're asking of me? What is it I need to do now to recognize God in my midst, to recognize the presence of God so that I might shout for joy, be glad, and exalt. Hopefully we can all come to Christmas with that sense of enthusiasm and joy that that little girl had. And if we look at that answer to the question of, what is it you want me to do? We can also have that second answer of saying, I did it. I did it.